What's going on, guys? You're back with Cindy's Sim Racing, and today we want to dive into some F1 news. And before we start, I just want to give a disclaimer. I'm a bit under the weather, so you guys may hear me sound a little nasally, but I think we're going to get through it. Do me a favor, give that like button a smash and subscribe if you enjoy this content. The first question we have to ask ourselves is, did Charles Leclerc sabotage Lewis Hamilton? After what happened at the Dutch Grand Prix, I think it's completely legitimate to question it. Because Lewis Hamilton was clearly faster. He was on the better strategy, he was closing rapidly, and Ferrari knew it. Yet Hamilton spent valuable time stuck behind his own teammate, while Ferrari hesitated over what to do. And eventually, Hamilton finished fourth, while Charles Leclerc finished fifth. But here's where I think the story gets much bigger than one incident. Because the more I look at this situation, the more I think there are three separate questions. Was Charles Leclerc wrong? Did Ferrari mishandle the situation? And perhaps most importantly, did Ferrari underestimate Lewis Hamilton when they signed him? Because I think the answer to all three questions could be yes. Let's start with Charles Leclerc. Let's not make excuses for Charles. Lewis was faster. Hamilton already passed Oscar Piastri and was closing rapidly on Leclerc. By lap 43 of the 72-lap race, Hamilton was right behind his teammate on fresher tires and believed he had substantially more pace. And this wasn't some situation where Hamilton was asking Ferrari to give him the position because of his name. He was asking because of the race circumstances were different. Hamilton was on a different strategy. He had more pace, and there were cars ahead that he was trying to catch. So when you're sitting in the Ferrari garage, you have to ask yourself, what is the purpose of keeping the slower Ferrari ahead of the faster Ferrari? Especially when the faster Ferrari is fighting for the championship. Hamilton wasn't asking Charles to surrender a victory. He was asking for the opportunity to use his pace, and instead, Charles stayed ahead for another lap before pitting. Hamilton immediately made his frustrations known over the radio. Great waste of time there, guys. And honestly, I understand why he was angry. Ferrari ultimately finished fourth and fifth. Hamilton believed that if Ferrari had acted faster, he could have had a legitimate opportunity to challenge George Russell for third. And Hamilton wasn't hiding his objections afterward. He said to himself, I'm here to win. That matters. Because Lewis Hamilton isn't driving for Ferrari to collect experience. He's driving to win another championship. But here's where I put some of the blame on Ferrari. Because if Ferrari wanted Charles to defend his position, then Ferrari needed to make that decision clearly. Ferrari wanted Charles to move aside, they needed to tell him also. If Ferrari wanted Hamilton to race Charles fairly, then they needed to accept the consequences of that decision. Instead, there was confusion. And Ferrari's own explanation basically confirms that there was confusion. Ferrari team principal Fred Vasseur said Charles was supposed to pit, and that the team extended the stint by another lap because it was trying to adapt its strategy and gain information from other cars. Vasseur acknowledged there was a kind of confusion, and that is important. Because now we're not simply asking about Charles versus Lewis. We're talking about Ferraris managing two drivers with different strategies while trying to decide what to do with the information coming from the race. And that's where I think Ferrari has a much bigger problem. Because Lewis Hamilton is not the driver Ferrari may have expected. Let's go back to when Ferrari signed Lewis Hamilton. Lewis was 40 years old. He had already won 7 championships, and by the time he arrived at Ferrari, there had been plenty of discussion about whether his best days were behind him. Charles Leclerc, meanwhile, was younger. He had been Ferrari's established star. He had spent years of developing with the team. He was supposed to be the future. So I think it's completely reasonable to ask, what did Ferrari expect for this partnership to look like? Did Ferrari believe Hamilton would arrive bringing his experience, help develop the team, maybe win a few races, and eventually give way to Charles? Did they believe Charles would naturally remain the faster driver? Or did they genuinely expect two #1 drivers fighting each other? Because whatever Ferrari expected, Lewis is currently proving that he is still one hell of a driver. Look at the numbers. This is where I don't think we should rely on opinion. Let's look at what's actually happening. After the Dutch Grand Prix, Lewis Hamilton is third in the Drivers' Championship with 183 points. Charles Leclerc is fifth with 155 points. Hamilton has finished ahead of Leclerc 7 of the 12 Grand Prix this season. Leclerc has finished ahead in 5. Qualifying is much closer. They're tied at 6. But Hamilton has more Grand Prix podiums, 5-4. And both drivers have 1 Grand Prix victory. So am I saying Charles Leclerc is a bad driver? Absolutely not. He is one of the best drivers in the world, but that's not the question. The question is, which Ferrari driver is performing better right now? And based on the championship standings and the head-to-head race results, it's Lewis Hamilton. That's not me trying to disrespect Charles. That's what the numbers are telling us. And that creates a very uncomfortable problem for Ferrari. Because Ferrari has a young superstar who has been with the organization for years. And then they brought in a 7-time world champion who was supposedly entering the later stage of his career. But now the veteran is ahead. Hamilton is in his 3rd championship, Leclerc in his 5th. Hamilton has more race wins against his teammate. Hamilton has more podiums, and Hamilton is talking like a driver who expects to win. So I ask you guys, what was Ferrari thinking? I'm starting to think that Ferrari felt that Lewis Hamilton was indeed finished, and Lewis was signed to come in based off of his name and to give the company visibility. And also, I think they expected him to play second fiddle to Charles Leclerc and give way to the younger driver. And I think based off of the results last year, I think both Leclerc and the team assumed that Lewis Hamilton was indeed past his prime. The fact that he came in and he's looking like one of the best drivers in the championship is something I don't think that either anticipated. And Charles Leclerc is not yet willing to accept the fact that Lewis is the faster driver. But what do you guys think? Do you think Lewis Hamilton should be the #1 driver? Do you think Charles Leclerc has some jealousy? Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Give the video a like and subscribe if you enjoyed it. And remember, if you want to win it, then you have to.
Sin.